you go to quizzes, go back over that, test quizzes and review, and go to QEP essays, and then make sure I'm screen sharing the right thing. Okay. And then scroll down to where it says QEP essay 4. Click that. And okay, so basically this is an outline, just like you did with, I believe it was outline number 2. Or no, that was maybe 3, whichever one, last outline we did. And it's the same thing. You're just going to write the outline for introduction, body, and a conclusion. Now, the thing with the essay is that I want to make sure that I'm getting this right one. Is that down here where there's you're not limited to just 3 things, 3 things to put on the outline. Let me switch it over to here. So in the introduction, you can have more than just 1, 2, 3 things. I put A, B, and C just to show the kind of format, but you can have 3, 4, 5 different items on the outline. You're not restricted to just 3. A lot of people just put 3 things and then they were done. And you don't have to do that. There's a lot more that can go into that than just 3 items. So, like, okay, the problem is describe in detail how many ways a North Carolina license plate can be made, selecting 3 letters followed by 4 numbers, with no letters repeated and no numbers repeated. Okay, in the introduction, you can state things, you can define things like, well, what property are we using here? Well, we're using the fundamental counting principle. So in the introduction, you could have like introduction. And you can have the fundamental counting principle. Okay, and then define what that is. Well, you can look that up in the textbook, or you could also go to an online source as well. For example, if you go to a web search and type in fundamental counting principle and hit enter, and there's several different web places that you could go to. And so fundamental counting principle is a rule used to count the number of possible outcomes in a situation and so on. And so what would you list as a source? Well, you could list brilliant web page. And let's see, does it give a date? It doesn't give a date. Okay, and it gives Andreas Gonzalez. You can put that by that, and doesn't give a date, but you can put the URL down. So just a URL is not enough. You have to list the web page and who it was by and stuff like that. So in the outline, you would define it, and then at the end you would put who it was by, and the so let's say, I don't know, let's say it was Gonzalez. I'm just throwing out any name here. Okay. So, and then B, you can list, different things that, in the essay, it says that here, it says, describe in detail how many ways a North Carolina license plate can be selected, 3 letters followed by 4 numbers, with no letters repeated and no numbers repeated. And then, so you in the outline, you could put, what does it mean by does not repeat? In other words, if one item is taken, then if one item is listed, then you cannot count that item again. You have to go to something else, and so on. And so there's other things that you can write in the introduction as well. Okay, so let's take a look at the problem itself. Go back to our essay, our question here. Come back. Okay, it says, describe in detail how many ways North Carolina license plate can be made by selecting 3 letters followed by 4 numbers, with no letters repeated and no numbers repeated. Okay, so it helps to go ahead and write this out. And I would recommend that you write this down. Okay, so you're going to have letter 1, letter 2, letter 3. So there's 3 letters followed by 4 numbers. So there's going to be number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Okay. And so in letter 1, you can have A, B, C, all the way to X, Y, Z. So there's a total of, how many would that be? How many letters are there in the alphabet? Well, there's 26, right? So if one letter, let's say we chose A for the first letter. Well, X, Y, Z. So if A is chosen, right, then if A was chosen here, then we can't use A in the next letter because you can't repeat. So that means there's 1 less. So instead of 26 letters, now there's only 25. And so now let's say the next letter we choose is X. Okay, so that means A can no longer be used. And so A can no longer be used because it's already been taken, already used once. And X can no longer be used because that was already used once. So now you've got 24 letters left over. Okay, now the numbers. The numbers start with 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way to 9. So that's 1 through 9 is 9, but plus 0 is 10. And again, since we can't repeat, if we choose, let's say, 9 for the first number, well, 9 can't be used again, right? Because we already chose 9. So now there's only 8, or there's only, instead of 10 digits, now there's only 9 digits, because 9 was already taken and we can't repeat the digits. So now this time, let's say we choose a 0. Well, if 0 is used, then 0 can't be used again, and 9 can't be used again because those were already taken. 9 can't be used and 0 can't be used. So that means there's one less, so there's only 8. And let's say we choose a 2 for the third digit. So now 0 is taken and 2 is taken and 9 is taken. So can't use 9, can't use 2, and we can't use 0 because those are already being used. So that means we only have 7 left over. So the fundamental counting principle states that we have the first item, n1 times n2 times n3, and then times, so this would be, the L1 would be n1, L2 would be n2, L3 would be, for third letter would be n3, and then the first number would be n4 times n5 times n6 times n7. So we're multiplying each one of these. So this would be 26 times 25 times 24 times 10 times 9 times 8 times 7. So we multiply all those together on the calculator. So we said that was 26 times 25 times 24 times 10 times 9 times 8 times 7 times 10 times 9 times 8 times 7. And we calculate that out, and that's 78,624,000. So that's 78,624,000. And that's our answer. So back in the introduction, you could specify the fundamental counting principle as having n1 times n2 times n3. In this case, with our example, since we have 3 letters, we have letter 1. We're going to multiply letter 1 times letter 2 times letter 3, and then number 1 times number 2 times number 3. And you can define n meaning number, meaning letter, and n meaning number, and so on. Okay, so in the essay, you have to make sure that you describe why each one is different, because if we choose the letter in the first one, then we can't use it in the second for the second letter, and so on. Okay, does that make sense? So it's more than just multiplying the numbers again together. You have to describe why each one is different by using an example. And you don't have to use the same letters I did. You can use different ones. It's all up to you. Also, you can create like a chart, and I would recommend that you do that because you need like written form, and then you can use a chart to help you to illustrate how we're calculating this out. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's all there is. And then for the conclusion, you're going to summarize, state what you learn, and so on. All right.